If we're constantly planting those thoughts and then allowing ourselves to sit in them instead of taking action, like we're growing this negative mindset within us, versus if we can take these small little moments of gratitude and constantly be planting those positive seeds. The banyan tree is a tree unlike others, a representation of resilience and strength through its ability to overcome the status quo and fulfill its purpose.
It knew that it was meant for something bigger and didn't allow the limits of other trees to confine its growth.
And our story looks similar. I'm Leslie.
And I'm Mindy. And our hope is that every one of our listeners learns to take up all the space they were created to, just like the banyan tree. Welcome back to the Banyan Effect podcast. I'm your co-host, Mindy. And today we're going to talk about taking some accountability for your own joy. And it's one of those episodes that was sparked because I am in the middle of knowing that it's time for me to take some accountability in an area of my life. Because we did this podcast episode a couple months ago, or a month ago maybe, where we talked about like living your best summer and how to we're gonna plan our summer and make it like I'm taking control of it. And now we're a month in, and I am like filled with like anger and resentment. And I'm like, okay, I need to take some accountability here and make some changes, because I am a very, very firm believer that we are responsible for our own joy. As soon as we start looking to a spouse or a family member or a friend or anybody else for our happiness and joy and really anything, is the moment we know that we need to turn inside and figure some stuff out. And that's where I'm at. I'm like frustrated with my kids and all of the driving that they need. And I'm frustrated with this and that and the other thing. And it's like, okay, stop. I am actively looking to blame all of these external circumstances. And that is exactly what today's episode is about, is how do we take actual accountability for our own lives, our own joy, and our own situations. So today we're going to give you 3 ways in which we can start doing that. And I'm going to be talking into the mic, and it's going to be coming into my own ears because I actively need this advice.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I saw something this morning, and it was during one of my mindless scrolls, which I also really am trying to get better at. But it talked about like, just get busy with your life. Like, just start living and get busy with your life. And it reminded me of this episode of like, in order to do that and just get busy living, you have to know how to just take accountability of your own happiness and your own joy in order to live the life that you want. So I just thought it tied so well into our episode.
And it's really easy to blame external factors. You know, I mean, it is. I get caught in this downward spiral of just like starting to like rattle off all of the things that are struggle and hard and whatever. And that isn't going to make anything better ever. So I think the very first thing that we need to do is we need to understand personal accountability. So like, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to me? And to me, it is like taking actual ownership of my actions, my decisions, and ultimately the words that I'm saying and the thoughts that I'm having. I'm a big believer in the power of our subconscious mind, and our subconscious mind is listening to the words that we're saying. And so I think for me, the first thing that I do when I'm trying to take accountability is think about like, what am I talking about? I need to quit. Like, we got on this Zoom call and I started complaining about how my kids' like summer football schedule doesn't take into account the fact that like we've got lives, you know, parents have jobs to be at, and they just like run 20 or 30 minutes over practice. And here I am sitting in my car when I'm supposed to be at work. But complaining about these situations doesn't do anything. And so for me, this is like the first thing is taking accountability and like listening to the words that we're saying and the complaints that we're making, and understand that that's going to keep you stuck. Is if you're continuously, and you know, I already complained to Kevin, and then I first time I see you, I complained to you, like that's on me, right? Like, and I am making this one inconvenience in my day, I am making it this big thing And when we do that, when we keep talking about it, when I keep talking about it, I'm bringing like more of that into my life. So I think that's just a good example of just recognizing that we have the power to create our reality through the words that we say, and we need to take accountability. I need to quit complaining about the fact that he is going to get out of weight and lifting a half hour late every day. And I just need to do something about it.
Yeah. Well, I think this personal accountability piece, it's like you have to just stop and take action. I think about like, there's a lot of emotional maturity that comes with like taking personal accountability. Like when you are in that mindset of like, oh, poor me, or I'm upset about this, or they said this and it made me mad, or they acted this way, and you start to create this like story in your head. It's like you have to have the emotional maturity to stop in that moment and be like, okay, that whatever happened, like I have the power to, maybe I can go say something to them about the way that made me feel, or I can change my schedule around to go do this, or I can tell work that, whatever it is that you're upset about. It's like, stop waiting for somebody else to come help you get out of that or make a change that feels better for you, because it's ultimately your power. You have to take action and you have to take control to make those changes happen. And, vice versa, it's not on the other person or the other thing to come to you and help you figure out how to get out of it either. And so it's like, you're just sitting, it's so easy to sit there and sulk, but in those moments, we have to just like give ourselves a hard time out and be like, okay, I have to take action right now. I cannot wait for somebody else to do this for me.
Yeah. And so the first point is embrace the power of pivot, because life just does not go as planned. And sometimes we find ourselves in situations that end up draining our happiness. Like we have a plan. I had a plan for summer. I did. I put forth every effort to have this beautiful plan. And here I am in a month in, and it has not happened. And it has absolutely drained my happiness, but I'm recognizing it now, and I'm choosing to take control of that and to take it into my own hands and to take action, because nobody else is going to fix my summer going forward. It's on me.
Right. Like just pure acknowledgement. And that's where I think that emotional maturity comes into play too, of like when you're having that unhappiness, like to recognize like I am unhappy right now and I need to do something to fix that, versus I'm unhappy or just feeling that and then not doing anything about it. It's like, how do you recognize it and then flip it and identify that like something needs to change. Okay, I recognize that I'm unhappy and something needs to change. Like have the power over yourself to say something needs to change, and then start to recognize what does need to change. And like I think being able to like feel the unhappy and then say, all right, what was it that's making me unhappy? And now I need to make a change is like step number 2. Is like the flip of, okay, I'm going to start to take action by identifying what it is exactly that needs to change.
Yeah. And taking action. And honestly, so I'll just keep using this example of the summer for myself. One of the things that I know is draining my happiness is that I don't get up when I said I was going to get up in order to have enough time to do the morning routine that I want to do, that I can really only do if I get up at a certain time of the day, which is not my strong suit anyways. But one thing that I realize is in the summer months when, I don't have to hop in the car and drive my kids to school at 7:30. So I can make bad choices, and I do. And I talked to my husband about this, and he and I, neither one of us hold ourselves accountable. We're both terrible at this. It's like the worst duo ever, because neither one of us is going to be like strong-willed, but like we get sucked into these television shows on Netflix, and we end up staying up until like 11 or 12. And then the next day, I don't get up when I say I was going to get up. So nothing that I said that I was going to get done in the morning gets done. And then I start my day off on the wrong foot. And it just spirals out of control. And the next thing I know, I feel like I don't have any control. So, but I have like identified, I've acknowledged, I've identified, and now like I need to take the action to be like, I think we're just going to like binge the rest of the season of Your Honor. And then we're going to just like take the TV off the wall. And because I don't have any self-discipline when it comes to Netflix in the summer. And so, but that's the whole idea. Like, it's nobody else's fault. It's my own. Mm-hmm. Like, I need to accept that. I need to own it. And I need to ultimately take action. Because like you kind of said in the beginning, no one's coming to save you. Like, your joy is your responsibility. My morning routine is my responsibility. Nobody is going to, like, I tell my husband, like, hey, I need you to be strong in this because I'm not, and he's not either. And ultimately, it's not his job. It's not his role. It's my role. I need to do that. So embracing the power of pivot allows us to take the control and create whatever it is that we need to create in our lives to align it with our joy and happiness. So take your TV off the wall if that's your problem. It's my problem.
I mean, anything, right? Your job's making you upset. Your spouse is making you upset. Your friend is making you upset. Like, stop sulking and go do something about it. You have to be the one to take action on your own happiness. I mean, it's just that plain and simple.
Yeah. And the next thing is practicing gratitude, which is so funny because here we are talking about gratitude 2 weeks in a row. And I like for the longest time, I despised that word. But again, it took me a really long time to really grasp that it's not this like, let me write down 3 things I'm grateful for. It's like this, it's actually taking this emotion and feeling it to our core and really engulfing it. And I think of last week I had one of the more challenging work weeks that I've had in a very long time. And it all wrapped up finally at like 4 p.m. on Friday. Literally, like the last thing happened that needed to happen in order for me to kind of get through these challenges, this challenging week. And on Saturday morning, I sat outside with a cup of coffee and I felt the gratitude. Like, I reflected on how grateful I was that everything worked out and everybody was ultimately good. And then what ended up the trickle effect to that is that I reached out to this client who was a part of this really, really challenging situation. And I shared with her this gratitude. And I was so filled up with the gratitude, not because I was like writing Dear Diary, but because I sat in the sunshine with my cup of coffee and felt it and like absorbed it. And I got so filled up with gratitude that it spilled over, and I ended up sending this message to my client, and she then sent one back, and it just was like, I was crying.
Oh,
I was
that.
literally in tears on Saturday morning because I took gratitude and actually applied it in a way that was life-changing, not just in a way that's like, yes, I need to add this to a task list. So practicing gratitude regularly is the second thing that, we're talking about today as far as how to take responsibility for your.
I love the like really feeling it. Like, allow yourself to feel it. Don't just like sit here and pound in your head like, I'm grateful, I'm grateful, I'm grateful, I have gratitude. Like that it's going to go here and like hit a wall and not like really absorb into your body. But allowing yourself to like truly feel that gratitude. And there was a moment this morning, I think even in like small examples too, right? It doesn't need to be like these big examples of gratitude either. I had 15 minutes in between back to back to back meetings because that's how my days usually go. But I stepped outside in my driveway and I had this like immediate feeling of like, oh my God, get back inside and prepare for your next meeting. But the sun felt so good on my skin that I just like stood out there for an extra second and did just a little loop around the driveway and in the yard. And in that moment, I was like, this is so good. This is so good. I have 5 minutes right now and the sun feels amazing. There was no wind today. It just, and like a little tiny moment like that, it lasted 2 minutes and it allowed me just enough like refuel to go back in and continue on with my workday. So, but an example of like these these moments of gratitude can just be these tiny slivers throughout our day too.
Well, and when you do take that little pause, I mean, it took a couple minutes, but what it did is it reminded you and it made you aware and it made you then be constantly looking for more of those little moments where you're like, life is good.
Yes.
My life is good. I am safe. All is well in the world, you know, because if we don't take the time to stop and just recognize those things, then the things that annoy us, a week or so ago, I know, you know, I was really struggling and I was spiraling out of control. And it was like, I think I talked about this last week. I was offended by like everybody, anybody and everybody. And it was because that's what I was choosing to look for and focus on and highlight. But if you're highlighting like, wow, the sun feels amazing today, it's all of a sudden your brain, your subconscious mind is going to be looking for these other highlights. And that's where we get true joy, because otherwise we lean on circumstances and our circumstances are never going to consistently provide us joy. That's not the life that we live here on this side of the earth.
Right. I think that is the perfect segue into our point number 3, which is this positive mindset. Like you think about those small little moments of good segue, Mindi.
Like we're oh, look at me
in news. Yeah, I could tell you felt really proud of yourself when I said that.
I did. I was like, oh yay. It's almost like it was planned.
Yeah, weird. But those big moments of gratitude and those tiny moments of gratitude. And we talked about this last week, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago on the podcast too, about those little seeds that we're constantly planting in our brain. Like if we are constantly planting those negative thoughts, I'm mad about this, or this person said this, or the work is doing this, or I'm stressed. Like if we're constantly planting those thoughts and then allowing ourselves to sit in them instead of taking action, like we're growing these this negative mindset within us, versus if we can take these small little moments of gratitude and constantly be planting those positive seeds. And then we're taking action on the stuff that we talked about earlier. Like I just think about the mindset shift that you're starting to create inside your own body. I mean, it's just really, really powerful stuff.
Yeah. And it's cultivating a positive mindset is not this. I think that has developed a little bit of like this toxic positivity, I would call it, because it comes across as if we just need to be positive all the time and be happy and whatever. And it's so much different than that. And so I think that that's just important to recognize that cultivating a positive mindset is not that. It's similar to the gratitude thing. Implementing gratitude into your life is not writing down 3 things you're grateful for and expecting your life to change. Same with this idea of just be positive all the time and throw positivity at everybody. That can feel very toxic and not have the intended purpose that we are looking for. And so this is more like reframing things, you know, and I did this when I was having that week where I was offended by everybody. I chose to take accountability in some of those moments and be like, okay, the whole world is not out to get me. Okay. So what I did is I reframed it and I started thinking about, well, I wonder if all of these people, or it's not like it was like a whole world full of people, but if these couple of people that I was offended by the way that they responded to me when I emailed about whatever, I started to think like, gosh, I wonder if they're having the same kind of summer I am, where it just feels like I've lost control over my calendar. I don't have any, you know, like my kids need to all of this, whatever. Maybe they're just stressed out too. And all of a sudden I reframed it from this negativity to more of a positivity. And then again, I was able to respond in a totally different way and respond with, hey, I am so sorry, whatever, take accountability for how I maybe affected them instead of just being offended by the way that they responded to me. So I think that's just a good example of how cultivating a positive mindset can help you to change your circumstance. Because when we do own how we're affecting these people around us, it gives us a different light. It puts us in their shoes, and it can totally make the whole situation do a 180. If you think about it from their perspective and then reframe that, and now you're cultivating a positive mindset of like, how can I help this person who just maybe accidentally offended me? And that's how you change, you cultivate this positive mindset.
Yes. And I love that you said accidentally offended you, because I shouldn't say nobody, but most people aren't out there intentionally trying to upset or offend people or be mean. Most people aren't out there doing that. So we've got to change that mindset right away of like, okay, it wasn't this person's intent. What was the intent? How do I do something about it? But I like this like reframe of negative thoughts, because I think it feeds into the episode that we had last week too, where we're like, you have to have the ones and twos, right? Like you can't have joy all the time. That's impossible. So you have to have the ones and twos. But if we can take the ones and twos and whatever created them, small, big, doesn't matter, but take them and then create the action behind them. Like you can't sit there and sulk in your ones and twos. You can't sit there and sulk in being upset. You have to take the action. And I feel like that's the like reframe of them, is finding the positive in them and also taking them and being like, okay, I gotta change this. I gotta take action and do something different. And so it's like, to me, it's the negative is still important. We're not sitting here saying the negative isn't important, but we got to take it and we got to do something with it.
Yeah. And that practice, because cultivating a positive mindset in a healthy way does take daily effort and practice. And we have to use, that's why we have all these ones and twos, and even through the threes and fours, is to constantly be giving us that practice that we need to turn those situations, to flip-flop them, pivot them, take accountability to not just sit with them and make day one. I had a friend tell me that when she's trying to coach her kids about sports, she tells them, don't turn one mistake into two. And I loved that. And I think that applies here too. Don't take one bad day or one offensive thing that somebody says and turn it into 2 or 3 or 4 days, or 2 or 3 or 4 offensive, comments that you're going to, taking the wrong way or whatever.
Yeah.
We have to practice. We have to use these ones and twos and these opportunities to help us get better at taking control of our joy. And I think the last thing that we should mention, and it's something that I'm not actively practicing, but I really, really want to get better at it, is positive affirmations. It's one of those things like meditation that I have heard from mentor after mentor after mentor, and I just have never implemented it. But I do think that if you pair it with like the idea of gratitude, for example, that morning when I sat with my cup of coffee in the sunshine and was like feeling that gratitude, I think that if in those moments that we have some negative thoughts going on, we can use these affirmations that we make up ourselves for, individually, to help us get back into cultivating that positive mindset. And we can sit and, like, when you're in the sunshine, you're like, when you're standing in the sun, in your driveway, in the sun, life is good. Everything is okay. And so if we can slow ourselves down to remind ourselves in that moment, what was that affirmation? Like, life is good and everything is okay and I am safe and my family is safe, whatever the affirmation may be for you, you grasp onto it in that moment, and then you bring those into your reframe on a regular basis so that you do have a quick, easy transition because sometimes I know that I can spiral one way or the other and I need something to like stop. When my husband taught me the term stop ball. That's a basketball term, I guess.
I'm not sure what that means.
It's a basketball term apparently. And I didn't know what it meant and he had to explain it and blah, blah, blah. And it's so like, I like picture these affirmations as like a stop ball. Like you have to pivot and you have to go a direction that you weren't maybe supposed to be going in order to stop the ball, stop the negative thought pattern that's spiraling out of control. Because I'm a spiraler. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what? Like when our kids were little, or people that have young kids, I mean, there's reels and TikToks all over the place of these little kids standing in front of the mirror, giving themselves these positive affirmations, like "I am strong," "I am healthy." You know, like it's the same concept of like just we have to be telling ourselves that constantly. But I think number one, it like comes down to like being. Like you have to be present and aware, and you can't like naively be walking through your life just blind. Like we can so often get in those routines where we just like, you wake up and you do the thing and you go to bed and you're just like on this circle. Like it just, you never stop. You just keep going and going and going. And like, I think when we get ourselves stuck in that type of pattern, it's like we become naive to the world and we're not present in our day-to-day and not able to recognize those things. So I feel like those positive affirmations, like just like reground yourself almost and don't allow you to just go through the motions of the day without recognizing what's going on. You know, as we wrap up today, I think, you know, it was a quicker episode, but I think that's a good thing because ultimately when we're talking about just the power of owning your own happiness or the power of owning your own joy, it's simple work, but it requires consistency and just being present. So it's like acknowledging that you're unhappy and really being aware of that. We talked about that, like just being present and not naive to what's going on around you and acknowledging the world and your feelings. And then when you do acknowledge that, like identify the change and start to take action. Ultimately, we all own our own happiness and we can't wait for other people to bring the solution for us. We have to take action and ownership in our own happiness and start to do the things and create a mindset that's going to allow us to bring and have more joy in our house. So I think, or in our homes and within ourselves. So I think if anything, if people can take away anything from this episode, it's that joy is our own. We own our joy and we have to take action every single day to bring happiness into our own lives. Thank you for joining us on the Banyan Effect podcast. Ask that we have every week. Share with your friends and family. It is our only way to grow. Thank you for listening and we hope to see you here next week.
We hope you have enjoyed today's episode and found some valuable insights. If you liked what you heard, we'd love it if you would hit the subscribe button.
We love hearing from our listeners, so drop us a comment, share your thoughts on social, or review wherever you listen to podcasts. Your feedback keeps us going and helps us bring you the content you want to hear.
As always, we appreciate your time and company. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep listening to the Banyan Effect podcast.